Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Who's gonna take you home?
Who's gonna tell you when?
Oh,
It's too late. Who's gonna tell you things aren't so great? You can't go on thinking nothing's wrong. Who's gonna drive you home?
we'll drive at some point. Welcome back into the Johnnie Bobbo Show on Late Night Sports Radio. This is 585-633-7487. Want to give us a call. And also tweet us at LN Sports Radio or at Johnnie Bobbo. So who's going to drive you home, Bob? I know you know the song. I know you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I had to let it breathe a little bit. Had to get to the chorus. That was too good, man. Happy Valentine's Day.
Was that your selection for song choice?
Yes. You know, I take very careful decisions, you know, on what I'm going to play here on the radio for people because, you know, as the way I dress, as my ridiculous hair, you know, all those things are an extension of my personality, man. And you need to understand, this is Valentine's Day, sir. I need to get you in the mood.
Yeah, well, you need to get me in the mood. Well, I'm already in the mood, Johnny, so
That's it. It doesn't much.
You better be taking me home.
Oh, God. That was just such a delicious song. It makes you feel good about life, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And also, new disclaimer, this was a pretty good off season in baseball. I just read that article you sent me earlier today. And it was a pretty good off season this baseball season.
Oh, well, that's good. I know I might get a little, you know, crazy with the with the emails here. So what's happening in the break? I disappeared for a half second. Apparently, I need to be called out on something. I sent some crazy emails about stuff we don't even talk about on the air. Apparently.
I was looking through you sent like 2 4-page emails about what we were going to talk about, and I was skimming through trying to find your baseball email, and I couldn't find anything but stuff about like Katy Perry Sharks or something like that. So that's I was doing my preparation for the show over the break.
Man, I gotta tell you, I put in the headline, subject header, okay, you know, show 3, 2/12, 2015, Johnnie Bobbo. This is what's happening today, okay? Couldn't make it any more clear. I got confused a little bit because I ended up forwarding, you know, I send these links to myself so I can remember them and things like that. And so when I ended up putting it all together and resent it, apparently I think things got missed. Or there was like too much. You would have to click a button to read the entire email, and I figured that'd be too much for you to handle. So I resent it another fucking time. Okay, and yeah, that happens. And so resent it to you with everything all in one email just to make life easier. And apparently, it's
you made things a little. I'm not the brightest crayon in the box when it comes to reading emails. I mean, I do my best, but. Yeah,
you're on top of it. You see the email like almost immediately, but like
I do.
You just don't see the words. It's just like, I received your email. Cool.
Yeah, you're like, I gazed through it. Yeah, I gave it a browse. I didn't click on every single. If you wanted me to click on every single link that you sent,
not every one. Just pick one, maybe. Just one.
I read that highlight.
Oh, see, that's good. That's good. I'm gonna make better highlights and make these emails, our pseudo production meetings or whatever that try sending people.
Maybe in bold.
In bold, yeah. See, I thought about that. I didn't do it. Maybe next time I'll do it. But so this is what's happening. Okay, yes. Apparently this offseason was relatively interesting. Now that you finally got caught up to things, but there was a ton of teams that just kind of rebuilt on the fly that I really got a kick out of. That I think are actually, we went over to Pacoda's last couple weeks, but what it comes down to, Washington, they did great things. San Diego, they made big improvements. Look at what the Cubs did, what the Sox did. Boston made a bunch of additions. Houston, are they for real now? Finally, so there's a variety of things that happen. But again, it comes down to maybe it wasn't necessarily the big names that got moved, but there were enough considerable bigger names that did swap teams. A lot of guys actually swapped leagues that might actually turn out being big advantages for these guys. Now they're playing in a different league. For example. Max Scherzer, he was kind of the stud behind Verlander for how long. Now he goes to Washington and no moose in the NL. Right there, he's going to get a boost. And now you just think at this point, he's, even though Kershaw pretty much has it on lockdown, he's got to be right there for Cy Young, at least a competitor right at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Kershaw. I'm wondering when what is he, 25 now, 26?
Kershaw, at the moment, sir, he is 26 years old. You got it.
Okay, 26. He's put on, he's taken on a great deal of workload for the Dodgers. However, he has not had that deep playoff run like a Bumgarner has had, or, your typical starter that, kind of flames out at, Verlander maybe. But with Kershaw, he's avoided those long innings, those stressful innings in the postseason, like in the World Series, NLCS, whatnot. So I think he's going to have a couple more years where he's going to be lights out, avoiding those. Bumgarner, I think, would be a candidate with Shaw. However, long innings this year, last year, not a good sign for him going into this season.
Yeah, and that was also another thing too about San Francisco. They kind of disappointed me a little bit in terms of what they ended up doing during the offseason. I was expecting them to go pretty heavy on basically they had their offense was kind of him and ho a little bit, but they ended up obviously winning the World Series, but they ended up losing Michael Morse. They ended up losing a bunch of different guys off this offense right now. And they just really didn't have a ton left. And I was kind of expecting them to maybe replace some of these guys, and that just wasn't something that happened. So I wasn't really too sure that reinvesting in Jake Peavy and Vogelsong was all that great of an idea. Like I said, they do have quite a few guys that do provide some stability. You do have Matt Cain coming back about the innings that Baumgartner put on. Then you expect Cain coming back from his injury. Same thing with Tim Hudson. And so at least they do have a little bit of room. They can kind of decide what they're going to do with Yosmero Petit. They can end up moving him into a relief role. But really, when it comes down to it, that offense need to improve. And I don't think that Casey McGee's the guy. Carlos Trufanol, he's not the guy either. Norichika
is not the answer.
Norichika Aoki?
Yeah, Aoki. Yeah, Aoki Toyota.
Yeah, okay. No, it's not a Nissan.
He's not the answer. What? Is he the answer? He's not.
He is not the answer. And that's like the biggest thing I think that's, disturbing about this is just that they haven't made any of those moves, that's going to actually boost their offense. And so I'm kind of, weary about where San Francisco went. So, it's one of those things to keep your eye on. But really when it comes down to, where Peavy came from, Boston, they made a bunch of changes to their team right now. Ended up, signing Hanley Ramirez, moved him to the outfield. I feel like that might help him a little bit, having the stress off of him, from playing shortstop. So, that's going to help a little bit. He's still going to be able to have his power numbers. He's going to be able to use that left field wall, quite a bit. It might not necessarily produce into, home runs per se. But, I feel like he's going to be able to get on base quite a bit. and that's a pretty big addition. But even though I'm not really, sold on Pablo Sandoval, that kind of worries me a little bit. Like I said, again, with his health, his weight issues, and I just don't feel that, he's going to be that consistent producer that they expect him to be.
Yeah, weight is not a good sign, especially when you're getting paid. It's not a good combination. I mean, we saw it with Mo Vaughn. He went to the Angels. I mean, he already had weight issues, but then they turned into my 600-pound life issues. That could potentially happen to Kung Fu Panda. And I don't know. The Red Sox, the East is it's going to be kind of a crapshoot this year. I don't really know what's going to happen, especially when the Rays are picked to finish second. Seems a little high. That's not a good sign for the division to be good.
Yeah, right. And I'm still kind of trying to figure out, what exactly the Rays are trying to do. They end up moving a few people, but when it really comes down to it, it's been weird. It's been weird. The Yankees, they kind of downgraded their offense a little bit. Ended up not spending a ton of money like everybody expected them to. They made a few additions to their pitching staff. Ended up adding Andrew Miller, so that's going to help their their relief corps a little bit. That was already in pretty good shape. So their relief is pretty good. Ended up signing Scott Baker. There's quite a few injuries with Ivan Nova, and just trying to figure out who they're going to end up having in that starting rotation. But when it comes down to it, I was impressed with what Toronto did this past offseason. They're relatively smart. They're not really a team known for doing that that often. Where they tend to overspend and do whatever they can do to compete. In the East. Boston was always spending, New York's always spending. But that's probably the biggest difference this offseason is I feel that GMs are getting smarter. Teams are being smarter about decisions. And so, there's not, those outliers where, yeah, sure, maybe a team will take a flyer, but they're more cautious about it. And sure, they're still spending the money. But when it comes down to it, it's all about, who's actually going to be able to help their ball club. And that's what they're looking at. They're looking at, not only their scouting reports, but also looking at different advanced metrics, different statistics, a lot of things that these teams have even created themselves as organizations, things that are important to them. Like for instance, you think about Colorado, playing in that weird ballpark, and the same thing with San Diego. You're going to want to find guys that are going to fit that ballpark, and that's where these numbers come in, and that's where the smarter moves come in. And it's not about kind of getting where Charles Barkley was talking, where he just dismissed analytics. You need to combine the two. There needs to be analytics and the scouting, and there needs to be in between ground where you kind of use both of those things to make a decision. And that's what I kind of like. I said again, Toronto, they did a very good job about that this year. Ended up making a smart moves. Brought in Josh Donaldson. That's a little bit of a veteran presence for them. That's going to help them out quite a bit. And their starting rotation is a little bit shaky, but I feel like their offense is great enough, their defense is great enough, where you might see, them come out on top. Because Baltimore, they're relying too much on just, people recovering from injuries.
I heard an interesting perspective from Jerry Springer, of all people. I want to get your take on it. He was talking about the Yankees and how, the idea of spending, signing a starting pitcher to a 7 to 10 year contract is just ridiculous use of money, and the idea should be more to spend money on starters that can go 5 or 6 innings, and then use the rest of that money to build a very good bullpen, which I guess his theory is the Yankees did that this offseason. Do you agree with that strategy versus, signing a Scherzer to a 7-year deal or signing a Verlander to an enormous deal? The list goes on of starting pitchers that, will start to flame out towards the end of that contract, like 3 years, 4 years into that contract. Do you agree with Springer's opinion on that?
Well, my whole thing is, at least in terms of when you look at the big contracts that are signed now, you look at the ones in years past, in retrospect, they actually kind of turn out to be deals in the long run because, the money